Sunday morning, as a kid growing up in Pearl, Mississippi, Sunday morning was the culmination of the whole week. Mom would wake us all up early, and immediately we could smell the fresh aroma of food coming from the kitchen. Now, you would think this food aroma was your typical Southern breakfast: smoked sausage, eggs, grits, but actually, no. This wasn't that. We had pot roast, baked chicken, and macaroni and cheese, and this was Sunday dinner. See, my mother has always had the gift of hospitality. When she'd finally get us up, we'd find that she'd already been awake for hours cooking Sunday dinner. By the time we got back from church, the food just needed to be warmed up, and it was all ready to go to bring to my grandmother's. When I tell you Sundays were an experience in our community, I really mean it. Our family would leave our double-wide trailer and drive a few miles up the street to Sweet Home Church of Christ Holiness, USA. We'd usually make it to Sunday school and head to our Sunday school classes, and after that, we'd have a brief break. During the break, most of the kids would grab snacks, candy, or gum, but what we really wanted to do was sneak and eat during the church service, which started at 11 o'clock. Usually the service would start with a few deacons singing a few hymns, and then they would open up the floor for what we call testimony service. Now, during testimony service, instead of a traditional sermon being preached, we would simply just stand and brag on God's goodness, faithfulness, and sovereignty. We would pass the mic. Different people would stand and share their stories. They talked about how they needed God to move in the doctor's appointment they had coming up on Friday morning at 9 o'clock. They talked about seeing God move and getting a great result from a test. They talked about how they needed a bill paid and they had more month than they had money. But a check came in the mail and it was the exact amount for the bill that needed to be paid. I can remember being a little boy sitting in these services, just being overwhelmed at how good and how faithful and how kind God was. It was formative to me. We even saw miracles. I remember being in a church service one time, and a man who couldn't walk without a cane came to receive prayer, and God healed his leg right before our very eyes. They hung his cane on the wall as a testament of God's faithfulness, and as the man walked back home healed, it was a celebration like I had never seen before. So a part of my formative years and my development as a disciple was seeing and hearing the testimonies and the stories of God's consistency, grace, mercy, and favor. Truly, even our funerals were marked by God's goodness. Some of my earliest memories are going to funerals of great aunts or great uncles. We call them homegoing celebrations. They were marked with great exclamation, great celebration, singing, dancing, and of course, tears. We cried and we mourned, but we did it with a hope and a joy that at times was absolutely unspeakable. So when I think about how I was raised and the role that church played in my upbringing, I see that everything has always been pointing to God's goodness, favor, and timeliness.